Can we see me? Can we hear me? As always, the very first thing to come out of my mouth on one of these streams. Hello. If we can be seen and heard, awesome, great, fantastic. I'm Brittany, this is Wei Ying, and welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch gay things. We continue to read Mdzs Volume 3 today. We are on, I believe it's what, part 2 of chapter 12? We're right before a lot of, really, really sad things are about to happen. I have seen The Untamed. I have not read this book. So this is more of a reading reaction type thing, as opposed to any kind of like professional reading experience or audiobook situation. And we were at page 123. It's part 2 of chapter 12, which is Sandu, which people pointed out in the chat on Tuesday that Sandu is the name of Jeng Chung's sword. And the second I read that in the chat afterwards, when I went back and I read everything, I was like, oh yeah, he even says that. I remember reading that out loud during that stream, and yet my brain did not connect. So that's pretty much the vibe of these streams. If you're new, we always give people a couple of minutes to come in, get the notification that Gaywatch is live, and come on in. That's going to be a little bit shorter of a window this time since we're getting somewhat of a late start. My back needed a little bit extra time to actually, you know, loosen up and let me sit comfortably. But fortunately, that actually seemed to have had a tremendous effect. We may not need a break, so we may make up the 10-15 minutes by not having a break today and just going straight on through. We'll play it by ear. We're very casual around here. Meanwhile, in the chat, it is just a what is it? This is a cornucopia of familiar names. I think the only there are still a couple of new people, or at least people whose names I don't recognize on YouTube, because everybody has a different name everywhere. A different name on Patreon, a different name on Discord, a different name just everywhere. But I want to shout out Ostrich Duster, because that's an amazing name to go by anywhere. You have my applause. That's fantastic. All right. Oh, thank you, Couscous. Also, because chapter 12 is called Sandu, the 3 poisons, right? And I was also going to be like, I don't get the 3 poisons part yet, but at least we have Sandu. Couscous just popped up with 3 poisons is a Buddhist phrase for the root of all turmoil, greed, anger, ignorance, you know. So that's delightful. Thanks, Couscous. We really that really sets everything up for what I'm presuming we're going to read today. Let me just see if it's so far it's been very conveniently divided into parts, and because we read about 40 pages, and it's always been like right on a part 1, a part 2, a new chapter or something. So let me see if that same thing is gonna happen today. 2, 3. You know, yeah, it is. We're gonna finish. Yeah, we should complete part 2 of chapter 12 today, which will land us at chapter 13. Yeah, that should be a thing that happens. Whew. Alrighty. Yes, it is very much BCE. It is time to suffer. If part 2 covers what I think it does, and it absolutely will. So just give me 1 second to pull a window over the stream so that I can't see me, but I can see the chat. So of course the window takes forever to pull up. But once we do that, we're going to dive right in to a lot of pain and heartbreak. I hope we're all in need of like a good cry, you know? Because that's exactly the vibe. Alrighty. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I knew what we were reading today. Is there a tissue or paper product within 5 feet of me? No. So this is how prepared we like to be at Gaywatch. Anyway, let us begin. Page 123, Chapter 12, Part 2. The little boat flowed downstream with the current. It was some time before Zidian loosened its grip and transformed back into a silver ring on Jeng Chung's hand. Having yelled the entire way, their voices had long since gone hoarse. They said not a word after being released from the binding, but immediately began to sail back to where they'd come from. They had no oars, so they paddled with their hands against the current. Madame Yu had said he wouldn't recover from the lashes he'd taken for at least a month, but in that moment, Wei Wuxian felt like his ability to move was barely affected at all. He could push past the searing, stinging pain in the areas where the lash had hit. With a burst of energy only felt by those on the brink of death, they paddled desperately. Finally, more than 2 hours later, paddling their boat with nothing but their bare hands, they made it back to Lotus Pier. It was already deep into the night. We're already, yeah, you know, this is it. This is really it. We're just going to, we're gonna take a second. We're gonna realize how much of the it that it is while I turn down the air conditioning in my house. Because I'm about to get just real emotional and worked up. And the last thing I need to do is sweat on camera. So, okay. The main gates of Lotus Pier were tightly shut, and the area outside was bright with lights. Fragments of moonlight shimmered on the crystalline waters, where dozens of large, colored lanterns, shaped like 9-petal lotuses, floated quietly by the dock. Everything was the same as it had been, and that was precisely what magnified their unease to the point of agony. The two paddled in and stopped when they reached the center of the lake. Their hearts pounded wildly while they sat there in the water. They didn't approach the dock, nor did they dare rush ashore to check on the situation inside. Jeng Chung's eyes welled with hot tears, and his arms and legs were shaking. After a long while, Wei Wuxian said, "Let's not enter from the front gates." Jeng Chung managed an unsteady nod. Both of them soundlessly paddled the boat to the other side of the lake. There was an old willow tree rooted on the bank with a thick, sturdy trunk that slanted over the water and branches that trailed onto its surface. The boys of Lotus Pier would often walk along the trunk of this particular willow tree to sit and fish from the treetop. Fucking brutal. Fucking brutal. That's brutal. MXTX, that's brutal. It was already bad enough. She painted, you know, a little pretty picture of Lotus Pier at night before, and then she's just digging in with sentimental activities as they approach something. That's vicious. The two stopped the boat behind the weeping trails of the old willow and headed ashore under the cover of the night and the willow's branches. Wei Wuxian, who was used to climbing over walls, tugged at Jeng Chung. "This way," he whispered. Jeng Chung was overwhelmed with terror and alarm. He could barely keep his bearings as he followed Wei Wuxian and pressed close to the wall, creeping low for a moment before silently scaling it. There was a row of sculptures in the shape of beast heads lining the top of the wall, which made it a suitable spot for spying. In the past, they were always the ones being peeked at by people who'd sneakily scaled the walls, but now they were the ones peeking in. Wei Wuxian craned his neck to look. Immediately, his heart sank. Rows and rows of people stood in Lotus Pier's drilling grounds, all wearing blazing sun uniforms with flames embroidered on their collars, lapels, and sleeves. The flames were a glaring, blood-like shade of red. In contrast to those standing, there were also many sprawling and prone. The fallen ones had already been moved to the northwest corner of the drilling grounds, all piled together in a haphazard heap. One person stood with his back to Wei Wuxian and Zheng Cheng. His head was lowered, as if he was inspecting the pile of Zheng disciples. Whether those people were alive or dead, Wei Wuxian and Zheng Cheng couldn't tell. Zheng Cheng was still frantically searching for the figures of Yu Yuan and Zhang Fengmian, but Wei Wuxian instantly teared up. He saw a number... We're fine. He saw a number of familiar faces in that pile of disciples. His throat was dry and painful. His temples felt as if they had been slammed with hammers, and he felt cold all over. He didn't dare think about Zhang Fengmian and Yu Yuan. Just as he was about to take a closer look to determine whether the skinny boy sprawled at the very top really was Liu Shidi, the person standing at the northwest corner turned around, seeming to sense something. Wei Wuxian immediately pressed Zheng Chen's head down and lowered his own. Although he ducked in time, he still got a clear look at the person's face. It was a young man about the same age as them. He was tall and thin with fine, delicate features. His jet-black eyes were a stark contrast to his ghastly pale skin. Although he was wearing a Blazing Sun uniform, he did not have an imposing aura about him. Oh my god. If anything, he looked a little too refined and gentle. The particular sun patterning on his robes marked his official rank as one of the Wen clan's young masters. Wei Wuxian's heart jumped into his throat. Were we spotted? Should we make a break for it, or are we still in the clear? Just then, the sound of delicate weeping rose from within the enclosing wall. Amid the sound of footsteps, a man comforted in a gentle voice, "Stop crying, your face is all stained." Wei Wuxian and Zhang Cheng were both very well acquainted with this voice. It was Wen Chao. Wang Lingzhao's simpering soon followed. "Will you not like me anymore if my face is all stained?" "How could that be?" Wen Chao coaxed. "It's like Zhao Zhao no matter. I'll like Zhao Zhao no matter what Zhao Zhao looks like." Bullshit! You are already combing through your, mental Rolodex of cuties back in fucking Shishan who you can replace her with. Don't bring me none of this bullshit. We fucking know. Anyway. Wang Lingzhao had worked herself up into quite a state. "I was really so scared. Today I really thought that bitch would kill me and I'd never see you again, Wang Gongji. Wen Chao seemed to have hugged her. "Stop obsessing over it, Zhao Zhao. Everything's over now. Fortunately, Wen Juliu protected you." "Don't bring him up," Wang Lingzhao whined angrily. "That Wen Juliu, I hate him. If he hadn't come so late, I wouldn't have suffered so much. My face still hurts so much." Good. She was clearly the one who had previously dismissed Wen Juliu, ordering him to stay out of her sight. Getting beaten was her own doing, but she was once again twisting the narrative. Wen Chao loved seeing her play the aggrieved coquette. Oh, sorry, hang on. A little bit of tea came back up there. Jesus. No, ow. Here, let me rub. It's fine if you don't like him, but you mustn't test his patience. That guy's got remarkable cultivation. My father said many times that he's a rare talent, so I'm hoping I can still use him for a few more years. Wang Lingzhao still refused to concede. Talent? So what? Sect leader Wen has so many renowned cultivators and so many talents under his command. Thousands of them. Don't tell me he can't do without him in that count. She was hinting that Wen Chao should punish Wen Juliu to appease her anger. Wen Chao chuckled. He might dote on Wei Lingzhao, but not enough so to punish his own bodyguard for a woman's sake. After all, Wen Juliu had thwarted countless assassination attempts on him. Furthermore, he was a tight-lipped man of few words, and would never betray his father, which meant he would never betray Wen Chao either. Such a loyal and powerful bodyguard was a rarity. Sensing that he was dismissing her whining, Wang Lingzhao added, "Look at him! He's a nobody, just your subordinate, and yet so arrogant. He wouldn't even let me slap that you bitch earlier. She was already... She was already dead. Just a corpse. He looks down on me. Doesn't that mean he looks down on you too? So, like... in my mind, it was gonna be pretty difficult to get that same visceral feeling as what happens in the Untamed when they just casually pan over the bodies to focus on, you know, these two fucking idiots. I was like, that's a real trick. That's a real visual thing. How do you communicate that in a book necessarily? How do you get that across? I gotta say, that's pretty, that's how you do that. Yeah. Oddly enough, that's how you do that. It's just in dialogue. And she's talking about slapping her. It just drops. It just drops mid dialogue. Fucking shit. I don't even... yeah, okay. Zhang Cheng lost his grip and slid down the wall. Wei Wuxian deftly grabbed him by the back of his collar and stopped his descent. Hot tears brimmed in their eyes. The drops rolled down their cheeks, splashed onto the back of their hands, onto the ground. Wei Wuxian recalled how Zhang Fengmian had fought with Madame Yu before he went out this morning. The last words that had passed between them had not been gentle or pleasant. He wondered if they'd managed to see each other one last time, and if Zhang Fengmian had a chance to say even one word more to Madame Yu. Wen Chao was completely unconcerned. That's just him being eccentric, talking about how an honorable person may be killed but not humiliated. He's the one who did all the killing, so what's with the point of spouting that scholarly stuff? Exactly, Wang Lingjiao agreed. What a hypocrite. Wen Chao, who loved to hear her agree with him, laughed happily. That bitch deserved it, Wang Lingjiao gloated again. She used her family's power and influence to force that man to marry her, and look how that turned out. What good did marriage do? He still didn't like her. Everyone laughed at the forsaken wife behind her back for 10 years, and she still didn't take the hint. Rather than take it down a notch, she just kept on being arrogant and domineering. She deserved an end like this. Really? Wen Chao wondered. The woman was quite attractive. Why didn't Zhang Fengmian like her? You know, sometimes there's a little more, just a little more, to liking someone than how hot they are. Just a little bit, you know? And I have pockets of myself that are admittedly shallow. But like, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit more. In his worldview, oh god, here we go. There was no reason for a man not to like a woman as long as she was good looking. The women who should be spurned were the ones who were plain or who would not sleep with him. I'm really looking forward to it. We all know what it is. I am anticipating that with great relish, especially since I know that it is evidently just way more brutal in the book than it was in the show, and the show was already satisfying enough. That's actually one of my favorite episodes in the entire series. Episode 20. Know it off the top of my head. The anticipation is great. It's obvious if you think about it, Wang Lingjiao explained. The bitch was so aggressive. She's clearly a woman, yet she went around waving that whip of hers all day and slapping people's faces. So ill-bred. Zhang Fengmian really had the worst luck to marry a woman like that and be dragged down by her. Indeed, Wen Chao chimed in. Women, I say, should be like my Jiao Jiao, lovable and obedient, gentle and adorable, and wholeheartedly on my side. Wangling Jiao giggled. Listening to these revolting, uncouth vulgarities, Wei Wuxian shook with both grief and anger. He was worried that Jiang Cheng would go berserk, but he was stiff as a stone, as if he'd passed out from the sheer weight of his despair. Wang Lingjiao muttered under her breath, Of course I only side with you. Who else would I side with? Just then, another voice interjected. Wen Gongji, every building has been searched. The count of spiritual weapons is over 2,400. They are currently being sorted. That was the property of Lotus Pier, the belongings of the Jiang family. Wen Chao laughed heartily. Great, fantastic. Times like these call for a grand celebration. Let's have a feast here tonight. Make the best use of everything. Congratulations to Gongji for becoming the master of Lotus Pier, Wang Lingjiao simpered. What Lotus Pier? Change the name, Wen Chao said. Tear down all the doors with that 9-petal lotus insignia and have them replaced with the Wen clan of Qishan's son. Jiao Jiao, come here and perform your best song and dance for me. Wei Wuxian and Jiang Cheng could not bring themselves to continue listening. Fucking me neither. They hopped off the wall, hobbling and stumbling away from Lotus Pier, but even after running a long way, they couldn't shake off the merry chatter of the crowd at the drilling ground. A woman's coquettish singing voice wafted cheerfully over Lotus Pier, like a poisoned blade slicing their ears and hearts, again and again. They had run thousands of meters in one breath when Jiang Cheng abruptly came to a halt. Wei Wuxian did the same. Jiang Cheng turned back and Wei Wuxian grabbed him. Jiang Cheng, what are you doing? Don't go back. Jiang Cheng shook off his hand. Don't go back? What are you saying? You're telling me not to go back. My parents' bodies are still in Lotus Pier. Am I to simply leave them there? Where else can I go if not back? Wei Wuxian tightened his grip on him. What can you do if you go back? They killed Zhang Shushu and Madame Yu. It's certain death for you if you go back. Then so be it, Jiang Cheng screamed at him. Go fuck off if you're scared to die, but don't block my way. Wei Wuxian moved to tackle him. It's never too late to take revenge. Their bodies must be retrieved, but not right now. Jiang Cheng dodged aside and counterattacked. If not now, then when? I've had enough of you. Fuck off. Zhang Shushu and Madame Yu told me to look after you, Wei Wuxian shouted furiously. They want you to be well. Shut up, Jiang Cheng roared angrily. He shoved him hard. Why? Wei Wuxian tumbled into the grass and Jiang Cheng pounced on him. He lifted Wei Wuxian by the collar and shook him incessantly. Why? Why? Are you happy now? Are you satisfied? Jiang Cheng's eyes were bloodshot as he closed his hands on Wei Wuxian's neck and began to squeeze. Why did you have to save Lan Wangji? Oh, I don't think we had that line in the show. Oh, babe, sweetie, sugar, honey. Overcome by grief and rage, Jiang Cheng had lost his mind and couldn't control his strength. Wei Wuxian tried to pry off his wrists. Jiang Cheng pinned him to the ground and snarled at him. Why did you have to save Lan Wangji? Why did you have to meddle when you could have stayed out of it? How many times have I told you not to stir up trouble, not to fight? Do you like playing the hero so much? Do you see what happens when you play hero, huh? Are you happy now? If Lan Wangji, Jin Zhishuan, and the rest die, then so be it. Let them die. What does it matter to us if they die? What has it got to do with our family? So why? Go die. Go and die, all of you. Go and die. Wei Wuxian's face was red from suffocation. Jiang Cheng, the hands strangling him, suddenly loosened their grip. Jiang Cheng leveled a glare at him, tears tumbling down his cheeks. From deep within his throat escaped the sorrowful, anguished moan of one near death. This is the part I knew I wasn't going to be able to read. I was hoping somehow it wasn't in here and it was just something brutal that they put in the show. But no. I want my parents. My mom and dad. He wept. He asked Wei Wuxian for his father and his mother, but it didn't matter who he asked. They would never return to him again. Wei Wuxian wept as well. The two slumped back on the grass and watched each other cry bitter tears. Deep down, Zheng Cheng knew very well that even if Wei Wuxian had not saved Lan Guangji in the Xuanwu of Slaughter's cave at Mount Muxi, the Wens would have found a reason to come knocking sooner or later. Yes, that's exactly fucking it. But he couldn't help but think that had it not been for Wei Wuxian, perhaps it wouldn't have happened so soon. Ow! Perhaps there would have still been time to salvage the situation. That perhaps was agonizing. With no outlet to vent them, his remorse and fury consumed him and tore him apart with grief. When day broke, Zheng Cheng was almost lifeless. He had somehow managed to sleep a bit that night, primarily because he was so exhausted from weeping that he involuntarily passed out. The secondary reason was his delirious hope that this was all just a nightmare. He desperately hoped to open his eyes and find himself lying in his own room in Lotus Pier. His father would be there, sitting in the hall reading as he polished his sword. His mother would be there, losing her temper and grumbling as she scolded Wei Wuxian for winking and pulling funny faces. His older sister would be crouched in the kitchen, dazed and racking her brain for what to cook today. His fellow Shidi would be there, shirking their morning lessons and bouncing around. He did not wake up to any of these scenes. Instead, after being exposed to the cold wind all night, he awoke with a splitting headache and found himself curled up in the overgrown grass behind a desolate and remote hillside. Wei Wuxian was the first to move. With some difficulty, he pushed himself up, hands on his thighs. "Let's go," he said in a hoarse voice. Zheng Cheng remained motionless. Wei Wuxian tried again. He reached out to pull him up. "Let's go." "Go where?" Zheng Cheng asked, his voice dry and raw. "To the Yu clan at Meishan, to look for Shiji." Zheng Cheng waved away his outstretched hand. After a moment, he pushed himself up and slowly stood. Both set off in the direction of Meishan, traveling on foot. Along the way, they both forced themselves to keep their spirits up. Their gaits were heavy, as if they carried a mighty burden on their shoulders. As if. Zheng Cheng kept his head lowered the entire way. He kept his right arm pressed close to his heart, stroking the ring on his index finger. Zidian, the only remaining memento of his loved ones. He kept looking back in the direction of Lotus Pier, staring back at what had once been his home, but was now reduced to a nest of devils. Again and again he looked back, as if he would never tire of looking. As if he would always harbor a tiny bit of hope. All the while, tears poured ceaselessly from his eyes. They had fled in a hurry and brought no rations with them. After walking for half a day, they started to feel dizzy. It was clear they had overexerted themselves, and so they left the desolate wilderness and entered a small city. Wei Wuxian glanced at Zheng Cheng, seeing his utter exhaustion and reluctance to keep moving around. "Go sit down. I'll go find us some food." Zheng Cheng didn't say a word, nor did he nod. All throughout the trek that day, he'd only said a few words total to Wei Wuxian. Before walking away, Wei Wuxian repeatedly exhorted him to sit still and not to move. At least they weren't too short of money. He had a habit of hiding small change in various corners of his clothes, which came in handy now. He walked around and bought food and dry rations to prepare for the long journey ahead. It took him less than an instant's time to grab everything, after which he immediately returned to the spot where they'd separated. But Zheng Cheng was gone. Wei Wuxian, carrying an armful of steamed buns, biscuits, and fruit, panicked for a moment before he forced himself to keep calm and search the nearby trees. When he still didn't see Jing Chung, that was when he truly panicked. He grabbed a nearby cobbler. Sir, there was a young master about my age sitting here earlier. Did you see where he went? The cobbler spoke around the thick thread between his pursed lips. The one with you earlier? Yeah, Wei Wuxian replied. I didn't get a good look, since I've got work to attend to, but he was staring at the people walking by. The next time I looked up, he was suddenly gone. I suppose he left. Wei Wuxian mumbled. Left. He left. He must have gone back to Lotus Pier to steal the bodies. Like a man gone mad, Wei Wuxian took it to his heels and sprinted back in the direction they'd come from. The weight of the food he'd bought slowed him down, and after running for a while, he abandoned it. But he was dizzy and exhausted, and his panic aggravated his physical distress. His knees buckled, and he fell smack on his face into the dirt, tasting soil. An overwhelming sense of powerlessness and hatred welled up in Wei Wuxian's heart. He smashed his fist hard into the ground and screamed. Only then did he climb to his feet. He turned back to pick up the steamed buns he had thrown to the ground earlier, wiped them on his chest, and wolfed them all down in only a few bites. He chewed like he was tearing at flesh. As he gulped them down, they caught in his throat, and he coughed, chest aching. Then he picked up a few more and stuffed them into the folds of his robes, keeping one in hand and continuing to eat it as he continued his mad dash in hopes of intercepting Jing Chung. He arrived at Lotus Pier with the bright moon and a smattering of stars overhead. Not once had he caught sight of Jing Chung. Hands on his knees as he gasped for breath, Wei Wuxian gazed at the brightly illuminated Lotus Pier from afar. Blood climbed up his chest and into his throat, a common side effect of running for a long time. The metallic taste saturated his mouth, and his vision was turning spotty. Why didn't I catch up with Jing Chung, Wei Wuxian thought. Even after I got some food in me, I can only run so fast. He was even more exhausted than me and had been dealt a harder blow. Don't tell me he can run faster than me under such circumstances. Did he really return to Lotus Pier? But if not, where else would he have gone? To Meishan alone? Without me? After taking a moment to catch his breath and regain his wits, he still decided to head into Lotus Pier to confirm. As he stealthily crept along the segment of wall, a voice in Wei Wuxian's heart prayed despairingly. Please don't let there be someone on the drilling ground talking about Jing Chung's body this time, or else what? What else could he do? Nothing. He was powerless. Lotus Pier was destroyed. Feng Mian and Madame Yu were gone. And now Jing Chung was missing too. He was all alone. He didn't even have a sword. He knew nothing. He could do nothing. For the first time, he realized just how insignificant his own power was. In the face of a behemoth like the Wen clan of Qishan, he was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, ambitious and oblivious to his own pitiable limitations. Wei Wuxian's eyes grew hot as the tears started to well again. As he turned a corner, someone wearing a blazing sun uniform walked toward him. In a flash, Wei Wuxian took them captive. He trapped the person's wrists with his left hand and grasped their neck with his right. In a hushed voice, he threatened with the most malevolent tone he could muster, "Don't make noise or I'll break your neck." The person was completely at his mercy. Wei Gongxi, it's me, they hurriedly said, it's me. It was the voice of a young man. Wei Wuxian's first reaction to it was to think, could it be someone I know going undercover by wearing the Wen clan uniform? But this voice was completely unfamiliar to him. He immediately dismissed the thought and tightened his grip. Don't try anything funny. I'm not. Wei Gongxi, you can take a look at my face. Look at his face? Don't tell me he has something hidden in his mouth that he's going to spit at me. Wei Wuxian was on guard as he warily turned the young man's face to take a look. He had delicate and handsome features, with an air of youthful naivete. He was the young master of the Wen clan of Qishan, whom they had seen while spying yesterday. Don't know him, Wei Wuxian thought apathetically. He turned the youth's face back and continued to throttle him. Keeping his voice down, he hissed, "Who are you?" The young man seemed a little disappointing. I'm Wen Ning." Wei Wuxian frowned. "Who's that?" Inwardly, he was thinking, who cares who he is? Either way, he has status in the clan. With him in hand, I might be able to exchange him for Jing Chung. Wen Ning spoke slowly and falteringly. A couple of years ago, during Qishan's Grand Symposium, I shot arrows. Wei Wuxian burned with frustration at his hemming and hawing. He raged, You what? You got a stutter? Wen Ning flinched in fright in Wei Wuxian's grip, looking as if he wanted to curl into a ball and clutch at his own head to protect it. Softly, he answered, Yeah? Wei Wuxian had no response to that. Looking at this sad, timid little stuttering figure, a vague memory suddenly returned to him. The Qishan Grand Symposium, the year before last. Grand Symposium. Shooting arrows. Oh, there was someone! Wei Wuxian ventured to guess. You're that Wen something. The one who was pretty good at archery. Wen Ning nodded vigorously. That's me, he replied in delight. Yesterday, I saw you, Wei Gangji and Zhang Gangji, and I thought you might come back. You saw me yesterday? Wei Wuxian asked. Yes, Wen Ning answered. But you didn't tell anyone, Wei Wuxian pressed. I would never, Wen Ning exclaimed. I would never tell anyone. It was a rare, stutter-free statement. His tone was firm and resolute, as if he were swearing an oath. But Wei Wuxian still wavered, uncertain. Wen Ning continued, Wei Gangji, you're here to find Zhang Gangji, aren't you? Is Zhang Cheng inside? Wei Wuxian exclaimed. Wen Ning gave an honest answer. Yes. Wen Ning. Oh. Translation flub. Wen Ning gave an honest answer. Yes. Wen Ning answered honestly. Of course, it would be one or the other. Wei Wuxian's mind whirled as fast as lightning when he heard this. Zhang Cheng is inside, so I'll have to enter Lotus Pier. Should I take Wen Ning hostage? No use in that. Wen Chao probably doesn't like him, so it's completely pointless to hold him hostage. And is he lying or not? Isn't he a member of the Wen clan? But he really didn't sound the alarm when he saw us yesterday. If I release him, will he betray me? Can someone so kind-hearted really exist among the Wen dogs? If I want to be absolutely sure nothing goes wrong, my only option is... The intent to kill flashed through Wei Wuxian's mind. He had never been one particularly given to killing, but ever since the tragedy that befell his family, wrath and fury had been smoldering within him. Mercy or benevolence had no place in a situation as grave as this. By applying just a bit of force to his right hand, he could break Wen Ning's neck. As Wei Wuxian's thoughts swirled, Wen Ning asked, Wei Gangji, have you returned to save Zhang Gangji? Wei Wuxian's fingers curled. What do you think? He retorted frostily. Surprisingly, Wen Ning smiled, though he did so nervously. I knew it. I can help you save him. For a second, Wei Wuxian thought he'd misheard. Astonished, he blurted, You'll help me save him? Yes, right now, Wen Ning said. I can bring him out right now. Wen Chao and the rest have gone out. Wei Wuxian gripped him. Can you really? Yes, Wen Ning assured. I'm considered a junior of the Wen clan. There's a group of sect disciples under my command who will heed my orders. Heed your orders, Wei Wuxian snapped. To kill people? No. Wen Ning hurriedly explained himself. The sect disciples under me would never kill people at random. I've never killed anyone from the Zhang clan either. I only hurried here after I heard what happened at Lotus Pier. Really? Wei Wuxian stared at him. What is he up to? Is he lying? Or just feigning civility? This is ridiculous. Does he think me a fool? The frightening thing, however, was that he was honestly beside himself with joy at having found a lifeline. He harshly cursed himself. Foolish, useless, absurd, outrageous, fanciful. However, he was just one person with no sword or spiritual weapons, and there were hundreds and thousands of cultivators from the Wen clan stationed here. And possibly Wen Zhuliu as well. He wasn't afraid to die, only afraid that he couldn't save Zhang Cheng before he did. He was afraid he'd end up letting down Zhang Fengmian and Madame Yu, who'd entrusted Zhang Cheng to him. With things being what they were, the only one he could pin his hopes on was this Wen he'd met a grand total of 3 times. Jesus Christ. Okay. All right. Okay. Wei Wuxian licked his parched lips and said, his voice rough, Then can you help me retrieve sect leader Zhang and Madame Yu's bodies? Without realizing it, he had also begun to stammer. He was midway through his sentence when he realized he was still gripping Wen Ning threateningly and hastily released the young man. He had a contingency plan, however. If Wen Ning fled and yelled the moment he released him, Wei Wuxian was ready to immediately split his head open. However, Wen Ning turned around and said in all seriousness, I'll definitely do my best. His mind in a muddle, Wei Wuxian waited. As he paced in circles, he thought, what's wrong with me? Have I gone mad? Why is Wen Ning helping me? And why should I trust him? What if he's lied to me and Zhang Cheng isn't inside at all? No, it's best if he isn't inside. Before an incense time had passed, Wen Ning re-emerged soundlessly with someone on his back. The person was covered in blood and motionless, their face ghastly pale, and their eyes shut tight. It was none other than Zhang Cheng. Wei Wuxian softly called out, Zhang Cheng? Zhang Cheng! He held a hand under Zhang Cheng's nose, still breathing. Wen Ning extended a hand to Wei Wuxian and placed something in his palm. Zhang Gongji's Zidian. I've brought that too. Because he is and always will be the MVP. I'm fine. It's fine. Recalling that he had harbored the intent to kill Wen Ning earlier, Wei Wuxian didn't know what else he could say. Thank you, he mumbled. You're welcome, Wei Ning replied. As for Zhang Shengsheng and Madame Yu's bodies, I've already had them moved and will transport them to you later. It's inadvisable to stay for too long. You should go now. Without needing him to say another word, Wei Wuxian took Zhang Cheng and lifted him onto his own back. The first thing he noticed was the bloody whip wound across Zhang Cheng's chest. The discipline whip? Wei Wuxian exclaimed. Yes, Wen Ning confirmed. Wen Chao got his hands on the Zhang clan's disciple whip. Whew! Let's try that again. Wen Chao got his hands on the Zhang clan's discipline whip. Zhang Gongji has other injuries as well. Wei Wuxian felt around on Zhang Cheng. He had at least 3 broken ribs, and who knew what else that couldn't yet be seen. When Wen Chao returns and realizes what happened, he will definitely hunt for both of you around Young Meng, Wen Ning added. Wei Gongji, if you trust me, I can show you a good place to hide. Zhang Cheng was seriously injured and in urgent need of treatment and rest. They definitely couldn't be on the move and missing meals as they had been before. Wei Wuxian saw no other way out of this impossible predicament than relying on Wen Ning. Just a day ago, he would never have dreamed he and Zhang Cheng would have to rely on a Wen's help to escape. He might even have died rather than submit. But now, Wei Wuxian could only say, thank you. Wen Ning waved his hands. No need for thanks. Wei Gongji, this way. I have a boat. Carrying Zhang Cheng on his back, Wei Wuxian found the boat Wen Ning had hidden and placed Zhang Cheng in the cabin. Wen Ning cleaned Zhang Cheng's wounds before applying medicinal powder and bandaging them. Seeing him move with such practiced skill, Wei Wuxian couldn't help but recall how the young man had looked back when he'd seen him at the Qishan Grand. Whew! Start that one again too. Wei Wuxian couldn't help but recall how the young man had looked back when he had seen him at the Qishan Grand Symposium. It was the same symposium where he'd scored in the top 4 for archery alongside Lan Wangji, Lan Xichen, and Jin Zixuan. Before the archery competition had started that day, he'd been wandering around Nightless City by himself. As he walked, he'd passed through a small garden and suddenly heard the reverberations of a bowstring. Wei Wuxian had entered the garden through the trees, brushing aside the leaves as he crept along. He'd seen a young man in lightweight white robes standing there, aiming his bow at a target in front of him, right before he released the string. The young man's side profile was delicate and refined, and his posture as he drew the bow was both beautiful and perfectly correct. The target's red-painted center was densely packed with arrows, and his latest shot had joined the crowd there as well. To think he had not missed a single shot. That's some sharp shooting, Wei Wuxian cheered. Seeing his shot had flown true, the young man pulled another arrow from the quiver on his back. He had his head down, about to knock the arrow, when he unexpectedly heard Wei Wuxian's unfamiliar voice. Startled, his hand shuddered and the arrow fell to the ground. Wei Wuxian walked out from behind the flower bed with a smile. Which of the Wen clan's young masters are you? That was marvelous, beautiful, great shooting there. I've never seen anyone from your clan who could shoot. Before he could finish, the young man abandoned his bow and arrows and fled from sight. Wei Wuxian was struck momentarily speechless. Then he stroked his chin. Am I that dashing? So dashing? That I scared him away? He didn't take the incident to heart, dismissing it as a curious sighting. The competition was about to start, so he returned to the square. There was a commotion on the Wen clan's side. Wei Wuxian asked Jiang Cheng, how can their clan stir up so much trouble organizing a symposium? There's drama every day. What's the matter now? What else? Jiang Cheng scoffed. The number of competition spots is limited. They're all fighting over who gets to participate. After a pause, he continued contemptuously. That group of Wens are all equally terrible archers. It's going to be like that no matter who participates. Why would fighting over it make any difference? From the other end of the square, Wen Chao barked, one more! We're still one short. Last spot. The young man in white from before, who was also standing among the Wen clan crowd. Ah, sorry. Wow. I'm going to get this sentence right, and then we are indeed going to take a 10-minute break for me to apparently reset my brain. The young man in white from before was also standing among the Wen crowd. There we go. We are at the top of 142. Whoosh. We're going to take about 10 minutes. It's 4. I will be back around 4:10. Let's reset, breathe deep. There's probably some more tragedy in the second part of this live stream as well. I can't exactly remember. We all know MXTX. She loves to come out of the blue and clobber us. So, I'm not going to say part 2 is going to be more like lighthearted and a good time and we can all cleanse ourselves. But at the very least, some of today's worst tragedy is now behind us. So let's go cry for 10 minutes and then we'll come back refreshed and brand new and with a stretched back. So I will be back in about 10 minutes. And then you realize that the image that you used to go to a break, you moved it the other day, so they of course wouldn't know where it is. The program wouldn't know where it is to go to break, which means I get to set it up again as if it's a brand new thing. 1 second. You know, this stream was going too smoothly, is the thing. So what we had to do was screw it up. There we go. Aha. Now I will be right back. There we are. We have returned, assuming I can still be seen and heard. So, we were at... Where the heck were we? We were at the top of something. 142? Yeah, I think we were towards the top of 142. Still seen and heard. We like that in a live stream. And where am I going to put the... I'll put it there. Alrighty. Going right back into it because I do have to end a little bit early today because I've got to do some heads up videos for Devil Judge today because I forgot to do them on Tuesday. Alrighty, we were... Oh, right, yeah, the sentence that I couldn't get out, and then I got it out. So, he looked left and right, then mustered up enough courage to lift his hand. But he didn't hold it up high enough, and he didn't dare to shout out his own name as the others did. It was only after he'd been shoved around for a while that someone noticed him and marveled aloud. Chunglin, you want to participate too? That young man named Chunglin nodded. Someone else laughed. I've never even seen you hold a bow before. What are you doing trying to participate in this competition? Don't waste the spot. Wen Chunglin seemed to want to defend himself, but that person continued. All right, enough. Don't try to sign up just for the novelty of it. The results are going to be officially counted. It won't be my business if you go and humiliate yourself. Wei Wuxian thought, humiliate? If there's anyone in the Wen clan who can save the lot of you on any face, it's him. The disdain in the person's tone came too easily, and it incurred Wei Wuxian's displeasure to hear. He raised his voice. Who said he's never held a bow before? He has, and he's very good at it. The crowd looked at him with slight surprise, then turned their eyes to the young man. Wen Chunglin's face was somewhat pale to begin with, and suddenly having everyone's attention on him, turned it beet red in no time. His pitch-black eyes stared hard at Wei Wuxian. Wei Wuxian walked over, hands clasped behind his back. Weren't you doing a pretty good job of it earlier in the garden? Wen Chao turned around and wondered dubiously, Really? You're good at archery? Why did I never hear about this? Wen Chunglin mumbled quietly, I only just started training recently. His voice was soft and also halting, as if he was preparing for someone to cut him off any time, which indeed happened often. Wen Chao impatiently interrupted him. All right then, there's a target there. Go ahead and show us. If you're good, you're in. If not, get out of the way. The area around Wen Chunglin was vacated in no time. His grip on the bow tightened as he looked pleadingly left and right. Seeing how lacking he was in self-confidence, Wei Wuxian patted him on the shoulder. Relax, just shoot as you did before. Wen Chunglin gave him a grateful look, took a deep breath, and drew the bow. But as soon as he did, Wei Wuxian shook his head inwardly and thought, no good. Wen Chunglin had likely never shot an arrow in the presence of other people. He was shaking all over, from his arm to his fingertips. The arrow hurtled forth and missed the target totally. The Wens, watching him, jeered. How is this good? I can shoot better than that with my eyes closed. All right, let's stop wasting time. Hurry up and pick someone. Wen Chunglin's face flushed all the way to his ears. He didn't even need the others to wave him away as he fled, mortified. Wei Wuxian chased after him. Hey, don't run away. What's your... Chunglin Chong, right? What are you running away for? Hearing Wei Wuxian call after him, Wen Chunglin stopped and turned around. He hung his head, looking deeply ashamed. Sorry. Why are you apologizing to me? Wei Wuxian wondered. Clearly feeling guilty, Wang Chunglin explained. You recommended me, but I made you lose face. What face is there for me to lose? Wei Wuxian asked. You don't really shoot in front of others, right? Were you nervous just now? Wen Chunglin nodded, and Wei Wuxian said, have some confidence in yourself. I'll be honest with you, you shoot better than anyone else in your clan. And of all the sect disciples I've seen, there are no more than 3 who are better at archery than you. Zheng Cheng walked over. What are you up to now? 3 what? Wei Wuxian pointed at Zheng Cheng. There, this one, for example, he's not as good as you in archery. Jing Chung flew into a rage. You're dead. Wei Wuxian accepted a blow from him. Without even batting an eyelash, he continued. It's true. There's honestly nothing to be nervous about. Practice in front of others more often and you'll get used to it. Next time, you'll definitely make them see you in a new light. Wen Chunlin was probably a junior from a collateral branch of the Wen clan. His status was neither high nor low, but he was a timid, hesitant person with low self-esteem who stuttered when he spoke. He had finally mustered the courage to join the competition after much practice, but had blown his chance because he was too nervous. Without proper guidance, this boy might withdraw even further from the world, never daring to show his skills in the presence of others again. Identifying a little bit too much with him now. A little much. At me next time, MXDX. Wei Wuxian said a few words of encouragement, then briefly mentioned some key points that needed to be brought to his attention, correcting a few minor bad habits he'd noticed when he was shooting arrows in the garden. Wen Chunlin listened with rapt attention, nodding non-stop. How much bullshit do you want to spout? Jiang Cheng said. The competition is starting, so hurry up and get your ass to the arena. Wei Wuxian said to Wen Chunlin seriously, I'm off to the competition now. You can watch how I shoot in the field. Jiang Cheng impatiently dragged him away, clicking his tongue as he did. Watch what? You think you're a role model? Wei Wuxian pondered the question and responded in an amazed tone. Yeah, am I not? Wei Wuxian, I've never seen anyone as shameless as you. And scene. There's a page break, so like literally, and scene. We are in the middle of page 145. Remembering their first encounter, Wei Wuxian's gaze shifted from Wen Ning to Jiang Cheng. He was still drenched in blood, eyes still shut tight. His hands were reflexively clenched into fists. They first traveled by water, taking the boat down the river, and then swapped to land via a horse carriage Wen Ning had prepared. The next day, they arrived in Yiling. Wen Ning summoned dozens of sect disciples and personally escorted both of them to a large, splendid mansion with a courtyard. He snuck them through the back entrance and led Wei Wuxian to a small house on the mansion's grounds. Wen Ning had only just turned to close the door when Wei Wuxian caught him by the neck again, before he even had a chance to draw breath. What is this place? Wei Wuxian questioned in a hushed voice. Even though Wen Ning had saved them, he couldn't let his guard down around the Wens. He kept a constant eye on Wen Ning, and they'd passed quite a few rooms full of people, conversing with Xishan accents as they moved through the mansion. Eavesdropping on a few isolated phrases that leaked through the gaps around the windows and doors, he'd caught the words Overwatch office. No, flustered, Wen Ning waved his hands. No what? Wei Wuxian pressed. Isn't this the Overwatch office in Yiling? Which unlucky clan's territory did the Wens occupy this time? What exactly did you want to accomplish by bringing us here? Wen Ning tried his best to explain. Wei Gongji, listen to me. This is an Overwatch office, but I never meant to harm you. If I wanted to, I could have gone back on my word last night as soon as I entered Lotus Pier. There would be no need to lure both of you here. Wei Wuxian had been wound tight and on edge the past few days, unable to relax for a single moment. His thoughts were confused and whirling, leaving him skeptical despite Wen Ning's reasonable response. This is indeed the Overwatch office, Wen Ning added. If there's one place that the Wen clan won't search, it's here. You can stay here, just don't let anyone find you. Wei Wuxian paused briefly before he finally forced himself to release his grip. He muttered a thank you and a sorry under his breath, then laid Jiang Cheng on the wooden bed in the room. At that moment, the door to the room suddenly opened and a woman's voice rang out. I was just about to go looking for you. You better give me a good explanation. Wen Ning had just told them they mustn't be discovered, and now they'd been caught. Wei Wuxian promptly broke out in a cold sweat and moved to block the bed. Wen Ning was so startled he couldn't utter a word. Oh, look! It's Wen Qing. Oh, hang on, gotta click over. It's Wen Qing bursting in on the boys. Oh, the tree up at the top. Just everybody's like robes and shit. Oh. I tell you, if they ever came out with like some special deluxe, like full color version of this, it's like same thing, but it's like all full glossed out art, I would fucking buy it again. I absolutely would. Without hesitation. We are at the top of 148. Both were frozen in place as they stared at the young woman standing in the doorway. Or rather, the young woman. Her skin was slightly tanned, and though her face was sweet, it was turned up in a haughty expression. She wore a blazing sun uniform with flames so vividly red it looked like her sleeves and collar were a dancing inferno. This clearly marked her as someone of extremely high rank in the Wen clan, a rank on par with Wen Chao. The three of them stood still as statues as they faced each other, until frantic footsteps came from outside. Wei Wuxian steeled himself and was just about to make a move when the young woman unexpectedly beat him to it. She slammed the door shut with a heavy thud, shutting herself out. "Chief Officer Wen, what's going on?" someone asked outside. "Nothing. My younger brother is back," they heard the young woman say coolly. "He's feeling low again. Don't bother him. Let's go. We'll continue our conversation when we return." The ones outside the door acknowledged her command and followed her away. Wen Ning breathed a sigh of relief and then turned to Wei Wuxian to explain. My elder sister." "Wen Qing is your elder sister?" Wei Wuxian asked. A little embarrassed, Wen Ning nodded. "My elder sister is very formidable." Indeed, she was. Wen Qing was renowned both within and without the Wen clan of Jishan. She wasn't the daughter of the head of the Wen family, Wen Rohan, but rather the descendant of one of his elder cousins on the maternal side. Although they were distant relatives, Wen Rohan had had a good relationship with his cousin since they were children. Furthermore, Wen Qing excelled in both the literary arts and the study of medicine. She was highly favored by Wen Rohan for her talents and often attended the Wen clan of Jishan's various year-round banquets alongside him. That was why Wei Wuxian was able to recognize her. After all, she was quite beautiful. yeah, she was. He had heard somewhere that she might have an older or younger brother, but no one really talked about him. Perhaps because he was far less exceptional than Wen Qing. "You're really Wen Qing's little brother?" Wei Wuxian asked in wonder. Wen Ning thought he was astonished that such an unremarkable younger brother would be associated with such an outstanding, famous elder sister. "Yes, my Mdzs is formidable. Not me, though," he admitted. No, you're impressive too," Wei Wuxian assured. "I'm just amazed that your elder sister is Wen Qing, the chief officer, and you still dared bring us." Just then, Zhang Cheng stirred on the bed and slightly furrowed his brow. Wei Wuxian immediately turned around to check on him. "Zhang Cheng?" "He's waking," Wen Ning hurriedly said. "He needs treatment. I'll go decoct some medicine. 99% sure that's how it's pronounced. I don't think I've ever actually seen that word before. I'll have to look that up later." He stepped out and closed the door behind him. Wei Wuxian was overjoyed at first that Zhang Cheng had finally started to come around after being unconscious for so long, but he quickly realized something was amiss. Zhang Cheng's expression was odd. It was too calm, much too calm. He stared at the ceiling as if he was not in the least bit interested in his current circumstances. He seemed completely indifferent to where he was. Wei Wuxian had not expected such a reaction from him. Sorrow, delight, rage, shock, none of those emotions seemed present at all. His heart leaped into his throat. "Zhang Cheng, can you see me? Can you hear me? Do you recognize who I am?" Zhang Cheng glanced at him and said nothing. Wei Wuxian tried asking him a few more questions. Finally, Zhang Cheng propped himself up on his elbows. He looked down at the wound from the discipline whip on his chest and let out a bitter laugh. When the discipline whip struck, there was no removing the mark of shame. Against his own conscience, Wei Wuxian said, "Don't look. We'll find a way to get rid of it." Zhang Cheng struck a palm at him. The strike was so weak and feeble that Wei Wuxian did not even sway. "Hit me all you want, as long as it makes you feel better." "Did you feel it?" Zhang Cheng asked. Wei Wuxian was momentarily taken aback. "What? Feel what?" "My spiritual power. Did you feel it?" Zhang Cheng pressed him. "What spiritual power?" Wei Wuxian asked. "You didn't use spiritual power at all." "I did." What did you say?" Zhang Cheng repeated himself word for word. "I said I used it. I used all my spiritual power and then some for that strike. So I'm asking you, did you feel it?" Wei Wuxian stared at him, falling quiet. After a moment, he said, Try hitting me again. Forget it, Jiang Cheng told him. No matter how many times I hit you, the result will be the same. Wei Wuxian, do you know why Core Melting Hand is called that? Wei Wuxian's heart sank. Because his hands can dissolve golden cores and render the victims unable to form new ones, Jiang Cheng continued. Their spiritual power will dissipate, reducing them to nothing more than ordinary humans. And an ordinary human in a cultivation clan is good for nothing. They can only live out the rest of their common lives, abandoning all dreams of ever ascending higher. When Juliu dissolved Mom and Father's golden cores, once they lost the ability to fight back, he killed them. Wei Wuxian's mind was in turmoil. At a loss as to what to do, he murmured, Core Melting Hand. Core Melting Hand. Jiang Cheng laughed grimly. Wen Juliu, I want to seek revenge. I have to, but how can I? I don't even have a golden core anymore, and I'll never be able to form a new one again. So how am I going to take revenge? Wei Wuxian's legs gave out from under him. He stared at Jiang Cheng, who seemed to have gone insane. Words failed him. No one knew better than him just how competitive Jiang Cheng was, how much he valued his own cultivation and spiritual power. And with a single strike, Core Melting Hand had shattered his cultivation, self-esteem, and hope for revenge to smithereens. Jiang Cheng howled with laughter like a madman. He lay back down on the bed with his arms spread open and abandoned himself to despair. Wei Wuxian, why did you save me? What's the point of saving me? To let me live on uselessly while I watch the Wen dogs run rampant? Wen Ning re-entered just then, carrying a bowl of medicinal decoction. He walked over to the bed with what appeared to be a deferential smile on his face, but before he could say a word, that blazing sun uniform entered Jiang Cheng's field of vision. His pupils instantly shrank. Jiang Cheng kicked out at Wen Ning, spilling the bowl of black decoction all over him. Wei Wuxian tried to catch the bowl of medicine as it overturned and helped pull the petrified Wen Ning back while he was at it. Jiang Cheng snarled at him. What's wrong with you? Wen Ning was so frightened he staggered backward. Jiang Cheng grabbed Wei Wuxian by the collar and shouted in his face, Why don't you kill Wen dogs when you see them? And you even helped him up? Do you have a death wish? Although he exerted all the strength he had in him, his hands were still weak. Wei Wuxian broke free of his grip in no time, and it was then that Jiang Cheng seemed to notice where he was. He scanned his surroundings and asked warily, Where is this place? Wen Ning answered from the far side of the room, The Yiling Overwatch office, but it's very safe. Overwatch office? Jiang Cheng whirled around to accuse Wei Wuxian. You willingly walked into their trap? No, Wei Wuxian denied. No? Jiang Cheng snapped. Then what are you doing in an Overwatch office? How'd you get here? Don't tell me you turned to a Wen dog for help. Wei Wuxian grabbed hold of him. Jiang Cheng, don't panic. It's safe here. Clear your head a little. Core Melting Hand might be able to undo. Jiang Cheng was completely deaf to anyone's words. He was half insane as he choked Wei Wuxian and broke out in hysterical laughter. Wei Wuxian, you... Suddenly, a red shadow kicked the door open and dashed inside. A streak of silver flashed as her palm struck down. It was a needle, and it had been jabbed into Jiang Cheng's head. He immediately slumped backward. Wen Cheng spun around and closed the door. In hushed tones, she rebuked her brother angrily. Wen Ning, how foolish can you be? You let him cackle and carry on and cause such a commotion? Do you want to be discovered? Gigi, Wen Ning said in delight as if he'd just seen his savior. Don't you Gigi me, Wen Cheng scolded. I haven't gotten to the part where I ask you when you became so audacious. To think you'd dare hide people here. I was investigating this earlier. No wonder you suddenly wanted to go to Young Meng. You really are a gutsy one. Who gave you such courage? If Wen Chao finds out what you've done, he'll tear you apart. Do you think I can stop him if he's really determined to get rid of someone? She spoke rapidly but articulately, her tone so strong and forceful that it brooked no argument. Wei Wuxian couldn't find a single opportunity to cut in. That's impressive. If Wei Wuxian can't interrupt you, that's an achievement. That's like achievement unlocked, right? Wen Ning's face was as pale as snow. Gigi, but Wei Gongji, You did it out of gratitude, which is justifiable. I won't say a word more on the matter, Wenqing said sternly. But those two can't stay here. You went over there, then left so suddenly, and they went missing right after. Do you think Wen Chao is that stupid? Sooner or later, they'll come looking here. This is the Overwatch office under my jurisdiction, and this is your room. If the others discovered you harbored them here, what charge do you think they'll convict you of? Think about it. She listed the stakes so clearly, it was as though she'd pointed at Wei Wuxian's nose and told him bluntly to get lost, to leave, and not burden them further. If Wei Wuxian had been the one injured, or if it had been someone else who had saved them, he would have had no qualms about bidding farewell and leaving right away. But it was Jiang Cheng who was injured. He'd lost his core and was utterly out of his mind. With Jiang Cheng like this, Wei Wuxian could not bring himself to leave. Besides, it was the Wen clan who'd gotten them into this mess to begin with. He couldn't take it lying down. And so Wei Wuxian could only grit his teeth and keep silent. But the Wen clan, Wen Ning began. What the Wen clan does is not representative of what we do. Wen Qing interrupted him. Just put that should be above or below like every single image of Wen Qing and Wen Ning. That is their catchphrase. That is their line. That is their subtitle. That is everything all at once in one nice little clear line. The sins of the Wen clan are not ours to bear. Wei Ying, don't look at me. Ooh, ow. Then you had to follow it up with, fuck you, MXTX. Wei Ying, don't look at me like that. Every debt has its own debtor. I'm the chief officer here in Yiling, and I was ordered to assume the post. I'm a doctor, and I have never killed anyone, much less have the blood of your Zhang clan on my hands. That was the truth. Wei Wuxian had never heard of Wen Qing killing anyone, only that people hoped she'd take over for their regions. Wen Qing was one of the rare Wens who acted and behaved normally. Her reputation had always been decent, and sometimes she could even put in a good word for others with Wen Rohan. Silence reigned in the room. After a while, Wen Qing said, "Don't pull out that needle. If he's conscious, that boy is sure to throw another fit. I could hear all that yelling and shouting from outside. Pull it out when he recovers, then leave as soon as possible. I don't want to deal with Wen Chao, especially that woman attached to him. The sight of her disgusts me." Having said that, she left the room decisively. She means we can't stay for long, but we can stay for a few days, right? Wei Wuxian asked. Wen Ning hurriedly nodded. Thank you, Zhizhi. A packet of medicinal herbs was tossed in from outside the door. Put in some effort if you really want to thank me, Wen Qing scolded from afar. What the hell was that medicine you decocted earlier? Redo it! The packet of medicinal herbs smacked right into Wen Ning, but he still very happily said, Any medicine my sister prepared is sure to be good, 100 times better than mine, superb for certain. Wei Wuxian finally relaxed completely. Thank you. Wei Wuxian knew the two siblings were putting themselves at great risk, one by turning a blind eye and the other by voluntarily helping them. It was just as Wen Qing had said. If Wen Chao was really determined to dispose of someone, Wen Qing might not be able to stop him and might even end up a target herself. After all, somebody else's children could never be compared to one's own. With the needle securely embedded in his head, Jiang Cheng slept for 3 days. His broken bones repaired themselves, and his superficial wounds smoothed over, but he was destined to never fully heal. The lash from the discipline whip could never be erased, and his golden core could never be recovered. During those 3 days, Wei Wuxian thought things over. After 3 days, he bade Wen Ning farewell. He walked for some distance with Jiang Cheng on his back and borrowed a small cabin from a forester. He closed the door and removed the silver needle from Jiang Cheng's head. It was a long time before Jiang Cheng finally opened his eyes. Though awake, he remained motionless, not even flipping over and asking where they were. He wouldn't eat or drink. It was as if he was interested only in dying. Do you really want to die? Wei Wuxian asked. I can't get revenge even if I live, so I might as well die. Who knows, maybe I can even turn into a malicious ghost, Jiang Cheng said. You've gone through soul tranquilization rites since you were a kid. Even if you die, you won't turn into a malicious ghost, Wei Wuxian commented. Since I can't seek revenge dead or alive, what difference does it make if I live or die? After that, Zhang Cheng didn't speak again. Wei Wuxian sat by the bed and looked at him for a while, then patted his legs, stood up, and began to bustle around. Evening came and he finally finished cooking. He set the dishes on the table. Get up, mealtime. Zhang Cheng, of course, ignored him. Wei Wuxian sat at the table and picked up a pair of chopsticks. If you don't replenish your strength, how are you going to get your golden core back? On hearing the words golden core, Zhang Cheng finally blinked. That's right, Wei Wuxian continued. No need to doubt it. You heard me right. I said get your golden core back. Zhang Cheng moved his lips, his voice dry and hoarse. You have a way? I do, Wei Wuxian said calmly. He turned around. You've known for a long time that my mother, Kangxi Sanren, was Baoshan Sanren's disciple. That one simple sentence lit up Zhang Cheng's lifeless eyes in an instant. Baoshan Sanren, the cultivation master who legends said had lived for 800 years. An otherworldly master who could revive the dead. His voice trembled. You're saying... Wei Wuxian repeated clearly, I'm saying that I know which mountain this Baoshan embraces. In other words, I can take you to find Baoshan Sanren. But I thought you didn't remember anything from your childhood. It's not that I don't remember anything, Wei Wuxian explained. I haven't forgotten the bits that were drilled into my mind. Among other things, I remember a woman's voice repeating a location to me over and over. The voice said that if I were to find myself in a desperate predicament with no other options, I could go there and climb the mountain to ask the immortal for help. Zhang Cheng instantly rolled off the bed and lunged at the table. Wei Wuxian pushed a bowl and chopsticks over to him. Eat. Zhang Cheng clutched at the edge of the table. Overwhelmed with emotion, he tried to speak. Eat, Wei Wuxian said again. We'll talk as we eat, or else I won't say a word. Zhang Cheng could only clamber onto the bench, pick up the chopsticks, and begin to shovel rice into his mouth. He had originally lost all hope, but with this turn of events, he suddenly saw a light at the end of the tunnel. He was so worked up with excitement that he seemed to be on fire. He could barely sit still, and didn't even notice that he was holding his chopsticks upside down. It was only when Wei Wuxian saw him starting to eat, his mind preoccupied with purpose, that he continued. I'll take you there in a few days. Today, Zhang Cheng demanded. What are you afraid of? Wei Wuxian said. Do you think a centuries-old immortal will poof away in the next few days? The reason I said it'll take a few days is because there are taboos I must tell you about. If you transgress and anger the Grandmaster, it'll all be over. You and I will be goners. Zhang Cheng stared at him with wide eyes, hoping he'd say more. Once you go up the mountain, you can't open your eyes and look around, Wei Wuxian continued. You can't memorize the scenery or look at anyone else's face. No matter what the other party tells you to do, you must obey. Okay, Zhang Cheng said. And the most important thing, Wei Wuxian added, if you're asked for your identity, you must say you are the son of Kangxi Sanren. You must never reveal your true identity. Okay, Zhang Cheng said. It seemed he'd say okay. His eyes reddened to whatever Wei Wuxian asked of him. All right, let's eat. Regain your strength and energy, Wei Wuxian instructed. I have to make some preparations over the next few days. Zhang Cheng finally realized he was holding his chopsticks upside down and swapped them over to gobble down a few more mouthfuls. It was so spicy it made his eyes water, and he couldn't help but curse. Horrible! After being questioned repeatedly for details about Baoshan Sanren, Wei Wuxian set off a few days later with Zhang Cheng in tow. They trekked through difficult terrain and over rivers, and finally came to the foot of a remote mountain in Yiling. The mountain was lush and green, with beautiful emerald peaks and summits surrounded by clouds and mists. It did have an air of transcendence, but there were still some discrepancies between it and the sacred mountain everyone imagined. Zhang Cheng was suspicious. One moment he suspected Wei Wuxian was lying to him, and the next that Wei Wuxian had heard or remembered something wrong when he was a child. And the moment after that, he'd be worrying whether they'd ever be able to find it. Upon seeing the mountain, he started doubting again. Is this really where Baoshan Sanren resides? This is definitely the place, Wei Wuxian replied with conviction. What's the use of lying to you? So you'll be happy for a few days, only to take a heavier blow later? They'd already had a similar exchange countless times. Wei Wuxian accompanied him halfway up the mountain. All right, from this point onward, I can't go with you. He took out a piece of cloth and blindfolded Zhang Cheng, repeatedly cautioning him. You must never, ever open your eyes. There are no predatory beasts on the mountain. Walk slowly, but even if you fall, you mustn't pull off the blindfold. There is absolutely no room for curiosity. Remember, insist that you are Wei Wuxian. You know how you should answer whatever questions you're asked, right? His ability to reform his golden core and seek revenge depended on this. Naturally, Jiang Cheng did not dare be negligent. He nodded nervously, then turned and slowly began to make his way up. Wei Wuxian called out after him, "I'll wait for you in the town we came across earlier." After watching Jiang Cheng slowly shuffle away, he turned around and took another mountain path. Page break! That probably just blew out all your headphones. I'm sorry. Page break. At the top of 160, Jiang Cheng spent 7 days on the mountain. The town where they had agreed to meet up was in a mountainous region itself, very remote with just a few citizens. The streets were narrow and uneven, and there weren't even any vendors by the roadside. Wei Wuxian squatted by the road as he gazed in the direction of the mountains. Still not catching any sight of Jiang Cheng, he pushed himself up and stood. He felt a wave of dizziness and staggered for a moment before walking toward the one and only tea house in town. The tea house was the only building in town that was not simple and rudimentary. As soon as he stepped in, a waiter came up to him with a smile. "Can I get you a drink?" Wei Wuxian's mind jolted. He was exhausted, having been constantly on the move for the past few days. He hadn't had the presence of mind to tidy himself up, and probably looked unkempt. It would be a miracle if the staff of a typical tea house didn't pull faces at the sight of him and boot him out at once. This man rushing over to greet him with such enthusiasm seemed fake. He swept a swift glance around the tea house. The cashier stood behind the counter with his head practically buried in the ledger. 7 or 8 people sat scattered across 10 tables. Many of them wore cloaks and were drinking tea with their heads down as if to conceal something. Wei Wuxian immediately made his decision and turned to leave. But he'd only taken 1 step out of the tea house door when a tall, shadowy figure pressed in close and in one thunderous move struck him in the chest. He crashed into 2 tables, sending them flying. The waiter and cashier fled in panic, and the 7 or 8 people inside removed their cloaks to reveal the blazing sun uniforms underneath. Wen Juliu strode over the threshold and stood before Wei Wuxian. With a pensive expression, he looked at him as he struggled to stand, then at his own palm. Someone kicked Wei Wuxian in the back of the knee, making him fall heavily to the ground. Wen Chao's face appeared above him, his expression one of cruel excitement. "Down already? You stinking bastard, weren't you quite the jumper in the Xuanru of Slaughter's Cave? Just 1 strike and you're finished? Ha! Go on, jump around again, let's see how you manage." Wang Lingzhao's impatient voice rang out. "Quick, Wen Gongji, chop off his arm, he still owes us an arm." No rush, Wen Chao said. "It wasn't easy to find this guy. Cutting off his arm will make him bleed out, and it's boring if he dies that quickly. Dissolve his core first. I want to hear him scream like that little bastard Jiang Cheng did." "Then dissolve his core and get to chopping off his arm," Wei Lingzhao insisted. While they were merrily discussing their preferred methods, Wei Wuxian suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. "Sure, whatever torture you people have, bring it on." "You asked for it," Wang Lingzhao said with a laugh. "Still trying to play the hero when you're on the verge of death?" Wen Chao scorned. Wei Wuxian sneered at him. "It's because I'm on the verge of death that I'm happy. I was afraid I couldn't die. Torture me if you dare. The more brutal, the better. That way, I'll be sure to return as a malicious ghost and haunt everyone in the Wen clan of Chishan. I'll curse you all and not allow you a single hour of rest." At those words, Wen Chao wavered. Descendants of illustrious clans such as Jiang Fengyin and Yu Yuan were nurtured by their families and influenced by their spiritual weapons from birth. As they matured, they underwent countless They underwent countless soul tranquilization rites in order to minimize the chance of them turning into malicious ghosts after death. But Wei Wuxian was different. He was the son of a servant. He hadn't been with the Jiang clan since birth, and so he hadn't had the opportunity to undergo a full suite of soul tranquilization rites. If he died full of resentment that corrupted his lingering soul into a malicious ghost bent on haunting them, that would indeed be a headache. The more torment he suffered in life, and the crueler and more drawn out that torment was, the more savage and unmanageable his malicious ghost would be in death. Seeing this hesitation, Wang Lingzhao hurriedly piped up. "Wen Gongji, don't listen to his nonsense. It's not like anyone can just turn right into a malicious ghost after death. The time and place and conditions all have to be right, or he won't be able to manage it. Besides, even if he really does pull it off, don't tell me the Wen clan of Jishan can't handle one wandering ghost. Haven't we been hunting him all this time, specifically to punish him? Or are we going to let him off just because he bluffed? She had half a brain cell. I don't like it when she has half a brain cell. Of course not, Wen Chao said. Knowing that death was all but certain, Wei Wuxian felt increasingly calm. The bone-deep hatred in him hardened into a determination as cold as iron. His expression made Wen Chao displeased, but it also made his hair stand on end. He kicked Wei Wuxian in the stomach. Still pretending, huh? Who are you trying to scare? Stop pretending to be a hero. Somebody tells him that one more fucking time. The sect disciples followed suit and pummeled him. It was only when Wen Chao felt they'd done enough that he barked, "Enough!" Wei Wuxian coughed up another mouthful of blood. He thought furiously, time to deal the killing blow? Dying is all the same, no worse than living, and my odds of turning into a vengeful, malicious ghost are 1 in 3. To his surprise, he felt incredibly excited by the prospect. But Wen Chao said, "Wei Ying, you consider yourself a dauntless man who fears nothing, one who is both brave and mighty, don't you?" Huh? Wei Wuxian sounded surprised. So Wen dogs can actually manage to say something that makes sense? Oh! Oh shit. Wen Chao's fist slammed down. He grinned nastily. Go on, mouth off all you want. I gotta see how long you can keep up that heroic act. He ordered his men to seize Wei Wuxian. Wen Juliu walked over and picked him up off the ground. Wei Wuxian strained to raise his head to look at the man who had killed Jiang Fengmian and Madame Yu and destroyed Jiang Cheng's golden core. He seared his face and his indifferent expression into his mind. The Wen clan group took off on their swords with Wei Wuxian in tow. The town and the remote mountain gradually grew farther and farther away. Even if Jiang Cheng descends the mountain, he won't find me, Wei Wuxian thought. Why are they flying so high in the air? To throw me to my death from the clouds? After flying for some time, a black mountain suddenly broke through the layers of snow-white clouds. It was wreathed in an ominous, deathly aura, as if it were a gargantuan, 1,000-year-old corpse. Even laying eyes on it from afar struck terror into one's heart. Wen Chao stopped over this mountain. Wei Ying, do you know what this place is? He laughed cruelly. This place is called the Burial Mounds. The name caused a chill to creep up Wei Wuxian's spine. The Burial Mounds are right here in Yiling, Wen Chao continued. You people from Yangmeng must have heard that name before. This is a mountain of corpses, an ancient battleground. Stick a shovel in any spot on the mountain, and you'll unearth a corpse. Any unnamed corpses are also wrapped in mats and thrown here. The formation of swords slowly descended closer to the mountain. Look at all this dark energy, Wen Chao said. The hatred is intense, isn't it? And the resentment too? Even the Wen clan can't do anything about it. We can only close it off and prohibit anyone from entering. It's daytime now, but once night falls, all manner of creatures will awake inside. When a living person enters this place, there's no coming back, for the body or the soul. They can forget about ever escaping. He grabbed Wei Wuxian's hair. With a nasty grin, he enunciated every word of his next statement. You too can forget about ever escaping. And with that, he threw Wei Wuxian off the sword. I was just reminded with the description of the burial mounds. I'll go and look it up. But there was a monologue from Shakespeare that I did in college as an assignment, and it was from Titus Andronicus, and it was this matriarch who like the whole monologue is actually bullshit. Like, she's bullshitting all this stuff that supposedly happened to her, right? Because she's using it as like justification for all the awful crap that they're about to do to blah 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 blah. So what she actually describes isn't actually a thing that existed, but like what she describes is so unbelievably heinous. Like, it's a really fun monologue to do. But the description is just so dark and terrible, and it's of her being in a place that is just hellish and deathly and like sanity wearing and just fucking awful. I really need to look up that monologue because I'm sure there's some like the whole thing, but I'm sure there are some choice phrases that could really be used to describe the burial mounds. And like that would make a great like gift set or something. Oh, I gotta look that up now. I can't believe I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Damn. I had to sing it too. My teacher made me sing it. I made the horrible mistake of telling her, he's like, I'm not, a trained singer. I'm not like a singer, but like one day I would like to do musical theater and, be trained in singing. And, singing in front of people is like, obviously a thing. And she was like, well, then sing your monologue. And I was like, but make up my own melody to Shakespeare and sing the monologue? Okay. And then, like, God knows how many years later, it will come in handy from some type of gift set or observation about this story through Shakespeare. So, hey. That is it for today. I must go. It's almost 5. I must go. Same time on Tuesday. We're still just chugging right along. We're getting into the real rise of Dark Wei Wuxian, which is some of my favorite shit. So, I mean, you could also just tell on the cover that this was going to be a big thing in this volume. But I'm so excited. We're going through some of my favorite bits, and it's all so fucking good and so well translated. There have been 2 mistakes? Like on page you can see mistakes so far in this volume, and like considering the speed at which these people have to translate, that's nuts. I'm sure there's like, just like with previous volumes, there might be like 1 or 2 things that accidentally got left out or something like that. But like on the whole, this is beautifully translated. And like, I'm still continually stunned by the amazing work that goes into this. It makes me really excited for, Guardian is getting an official translation through the same people, through 7Cs. They're getting an official English translation. So like, I'm excited for everything now. I'm excited for all the English translations just going off of the amazing stuff they're doing here. But I will see you guys hopefully on Tuesday, same time, same deal. We made it through some tragic stuff. We cried. It's fine. We're now going to go into some really, really dark shit. So I'm jazzed. I will see you guys on Tuesday. Thank you for stopping in. I hope you had fun. I always have so much of a blast that I almost kind of like feel like I'm having all the fun. But anyway, take care of yourselves. I will see you on Tuesday.